When I first started out, I thought the key to wealth was simply to make more money. I figured if I could just double my income, all my problems would be solved. But I soon discovered something very sobering. There are people who earn a fortune and still end up broke. Why? Because the size of their income doesn't matter as much as the size of the gap they keep between what they earn and what they spend. Wealth is not what comes in, wealth is what stays. Wealth is what accumulates in that little gap. And if that gap is zero or worse, negative, you'll always struggle, no matter how much you earn. It's not about deprivation, it's about discipline. Living on less than you earn is one of the simplest yet hardest philosophies to practice. It requires a kind of self-respect, a willingness to say, I will not consume everything today because I value my tomorrow. The truth is, money whispers a very tricky message. Spend me, enjoy me now. And if you listen too much, it will drain you. But if you hold back, even just a little, you give that money a new voice. Instead of saying, spend me, it begins to say, grow me. And that shift changes your whole financial destiny. When I was younger, I decided to cut just one unnecessary expense, a small luxury that made me feel good in the moment but added nothing to my future. I redirected that money into a savings jar. It wasn't much at first, but over time that habit built not just a jar, but an account and eventually an investment. The power was not in the size, but in the consistency. And soon I realized I was building more than savings, I was building character. Start with something small this week. Cancel one subscription, skip one dinner out, redirect one little stream into a pool that belongs to your future. You don't need to leap, just step. Step into discipline, step into margin, step into control. That is where wealth begins. And remember, the seed is always smaller than the tree, but without the seed, there will never be a tree. When I first learned about saving, I thought that was the whole game. Put money in a jar, keep it safe, and that's how wealth is built. But here's the truth. Saving only protects you. It doesn't multiply you. It's like digging a well and keeping the water still. You won't die of thirst, but you also won't grow a garden. To build real wealth, you have to take the next step. You have to move from storing money to planting it. Saving is defense, but investing that's offense. And in the game of wealth, you need both. Think of money like seeds. If you eat all the seeds, there's no harvest tomorrow. If you lock the seeds away, they won't spoil, but they also won't grow. The only way to create a harvest is to plant those seeds in fertile soil. That's what investing is. You take a portion of your income and place it where time and growth can multiply it. Stocks, real estate, a business, a fund, these are the fields. And once you learn the principle, you realize the goal isn't just to have money sitting safe, but to have money working, producing, multiplying. I remember when I made my first small investment. It wasn't a fortune, but it was intentional. I moved from the mindset of a saver to the mindset of an investor. At first I was nervous. What if I lose it? But then I realized something important. If I never plant, I'll never harvest. Yes, there is risk, but there is also reward. And the discipline of investing regularly month after month, no matter the amount, begins to create a momentum that no savings account alone can ever provide. The practical step is simple. Decide today what percentage of your income you will invest every single month. Automate it if you can. Treat it like a bill you pay your future self. And remember, the goal is not to get rich overnight, but to let time, consistency, and compounding do their work. Saving is important, it keeps you secure, but investing is essential, it sets you free. The question is, will you only protect your seeds, or will you plant them for a harvest that can change your life? I've often said that ignorance is more expensive than education, and it's true. Many people rush to put their money to work before they put their mind to work. They chase after profits, but they don't understand the rules of the game. And what happens? They lose. Not because they didn't have the opportunity, but because they lacked the knowledge to handle it. The truth is, money without wisdom quickly disappears. But money guided by understanding has a way of multiplying and staying. I remember when I first started learning about wealth. I didn't come from a background of financial literacy. In fact, I struggled. But I decided if I wanted my circumstances to change, I had to change first. And the easiest place to start was with a book. One book led to another, then to seminars, then to conversations with people who were ahead of me financially. Every page, every lesson added a layer of protection, a filter that helped me see what was a good opportunity and what was just a distraction. That education didn't cost much, but it saved me fortunes in mistakes I might have made without it. Here's the strategy. Before you invest heavily in the marketplace, invest heavily in yourself. Learn the basics, how money grows, how taxes work, how compounding multiplies, how markets behave. Don't just put your money somewhere because someone said it's a good idea. Know enough to ask the right questions. Know enough to protect yourself from being fooled. Because when it comes to money, what you don't know will cost you more than you can imagine. The practical step is simple. Start by reading one good wealth book every month. That's 12 a year. And in 5 years, you'll have read 60. That much concentrated knowledge will change the way you see money forever. Combine that with listening to mentors, attending seminars, and studying success stories, and you'll find that your financial decisions become sharper, safer, and more profitable. So, don't be in a hurry to educate your wallet. Educate yourself first, because when the mind is prepared, the money follows. And when you gain wisdom before wealth, you'll not only earn it, you'll know how to keep it. What you measure, you can improve. That's not just true for health, fitness, or business. It's especially true for money. Most people think they have a spending problem, but what they really have is an awareness problem. Money comes in, money goes out, and they don't quite know where. And because they don't know, they can't correct it. The result is frustration, wondering why wealth never seems to build. But if you want to take control of your financial life, the first step is simple. Track it. When I was younger, I didn't track a thing. I thought, as long as I work hard, things will turn out. But month after month, I'd wonder why my pockets were empty. Then I learned the habit of keeping a journal, not just for my thoughts, but for my money. I started writing down every dollar that came in and every dollar that went out. At first, it seemed tedious, but soon I began to see patterns. I could see exactly where I was overspending, where I was leaking, and where I could save. And once I saw it, I could fix it. Awareness created control, and control created progress. The strategy is clear. Record your income, your expenses, and your asset growth on a regular basis. If you earn $1, write it down. If you spend $1, write it down. At the end of the week or the month, look at the numbers. Numbers tell the truth. They don't care about your feelings. They don't bend to excuses. They simply reveal reality. And reality is the starting point for change. Now here's the practical step. Set a recurring date every month, like the first Saturday morning, and make it your money review. Sit down with your journal or your spreadsheet or whatever tool you prefer, and review where your money came from and where it went. Then compare it to your goals. Did you save what you planned? Did you invest what you promised yourself? Did your assets grow, even a little? This simple practice, done consistently, will not only reveal your progress, it will motivate you to keep going. The truth is, you can't master what you don't measure. But the moment you start tracking, You put yourself in the driver's seat of your financial future. One of the most important lessons I ever learned about money is this: it's easier to lose than it is to gain. You can spend years working hard, saving diligently, and investing wisely, but if you make one careless move, it can all disappear. That's why I say, protect your capital ruthlessly. Treat it like a fragile seed that needs to be guarded, because if you lose the seed, you lose the harvest. I've met people who worked faithfully for 10 years, building a solid base of savings, only to see it vanish in a single reckless investment. Maybe it was a friend with a can't-lose idea. Maybe it was a quick promise of doubling their money. But let me tell you, if it sounds too good to be true, it usually is. The problem isn't just losing money, it's losing time. You can earn back dollars, but you can't earn back years. That's why discipline in protecting your capital is the foundation of lasting wealth. The strategy is simple. Never risk money in something you don't fully understand. If someone offers you an opportunity and you can't explain clearly how it works, how it produces returns, and how you can exit when you choose, don't do it. Complexity is often a mask for risk. And if you're not in control of your money, then someone else is, and that's dangerous. Your first responsibility is not to chase high returns, but to preserve what you already have. Here's a practical step that has served me well. Before you put a single dollar into any investment, sit down and write out 3 things: the risk, the reward, and the exit plan. What's the worst case scenario? What do you stand to gain if things go right? And if it doesn't go as planned, how do you get out? If you can't write those down with confidence, you have no business putting your money there. Remember, money has 2 jobs: to grow and to stay. If it grows but doesn't stay, you lose. If it stays but never grows, you fall behind. The key is balance, but it always starts with protection. Because one bad move can undo years of good moves. And wealth requires more than effort, it requires wisdom. One of the greatest secrets to building wealth is learning faster than you earn. Too many people put all their focus on income while ignoring the skills that generate that income in the first place. But the truth is, skills compound before capital ever does. Before money can multiply in your investments, it first multiplies through you, through the abilities you sharpen, the knowledge you acquire, and the wisdom you apply. I remember when I first got into business, I wasn't very skilled. I was ambitious, yes, but ambition without the right knowledge can be a dangerous thing. What turned my life around wasn't just working harder, it was working smarter, because I began to invest in myself. I started buying books, attending seminars, and sitting at the feet of people who had what I wanted. And every time I picked up a new skill, it expanded my earning capacity. That's how wealth truly begins, not in the marketplace, but in your mind. The strategy is straightforward. Invest consistently in new, high-value skills. If you want to be paid more, bring more value to the marketplace. Learn to communicate better, because communication opens doors. Learn to sell, because sales create opportunities. Learn about investing, because understanding money is more important than making it. Each new skill increases your worth, and when your worth increases, your income follows. Here's a practical step you can start immediately. Dedicate at least 5% of your income to education. Treat it like a bill you must pay, the most important bill of all. Buy the book that stretches your thinking. Take the course that sharpens your expertise. Seek out a mentor who can cut years off your learning curve. Think of it this way. The money you spend on education isn't an expense, it's an investment in the only machine that can never be taken away from you, your mind. See, you don't just want to earn and then spend. You want to learn and then earn more because of that learning. That's how you get ahead of the curve. Money can be lost, but skill stays with you forever. And if you learn faster than you earn, you'll always be wealthy, even before the numbers in your account prove it. One of the turning points in the wealth journey is when you learn to reinvest profits until your money begins to replace you. That's when freedom begins, when the money you've earned and wisely planted works harder than you do. Too many people get excited when profits first come in, and the temptation is strong to upgrade the car, move into a bigger house, or spend on things that make us look successful. But looking successful and being financially free are two very different things. The philosophy is simple. Freedom comes when money works while you sleep. If every dollar you earn is spent on lifestyle, you'll always have to trade your time for income. But if you direct those profits back into assets, business expansion, real estate, dividend-paying stocks, or any vehicle that produces more income, you're building a machine that eventually makes your labor optional. I've seen people earn extraordinary incomes, yet because they consumed everything they made, they ended up broke. And I've also seen people with modest incomes who chose to reinvest consistently, and in time, they reached the point where their money did all the heavy lifting. The strategy is clear. Roll profits into bigger assets instead of immediate gratification. Every time you receive a profit, pause and ask, will this decision move me closer to freedom or further from it? If you choose assets over lifestyle, your profits start multiplying, and with each reinvestment, your financial engine grows stronger. Here's a practical step to make it real. Track your passive income every month until it equals your living costs. Write it down. Watch the numbers climb, even if slowly. The day your passive income covers your expenses, you've bought back your life. That's when you can choose to work. Not because you must, but because you want to. See? The goal isn't to spend more, it's to buy freedom. And freedom doesn't come from a paycheck, it comes from reinvested profits that grow until your money stands in your place. Discipline is wealth's first partner. Because without discipline, even the best ideas, the highest incomes, and the greatest opportunities will slip right through your hands. It's not the big leaps that build lasting wealth. It's the small, steady steps taken over and over again. Intensity gets you excited for a moment, but consistency builds the life you want. Anyone can save money once or invest when they feel inspired, but real wealth is born when those habits are practiced daily, almost like breathing. The philosophy is clear. Consistency beats intensity. I've seen people who got fired up for a month, cutting expenses, reading books, investing a little, only to fall right back into old habits. That kind of pattern builds frustration, not wealth. On the other hand, I've seen ordinary people with ordinary incomes who made extraordinary progress simply because they stayed consistent. They didn't put in massive sums at once, but they put in something every single week. And that something grew into everything they needed. The strategy is to practice financial habits daily, not occasionally. Wealth isn't built in a day. It's built day by day. Just like you don't get strong lifting weights once a year, you don't get wealthy by saving or investing once in a while. It's about rhythm, about putting your financial life on a steady track and refusing to break the chain. The practical step is simple. Save or invest a small set amount every single week. It doesn't matter how small it is at the beginning. What matters is that it happens without fail. $10, $50, $100, whatever fits your current capacity. The magic isn't in the amount, it's in the repetition. Over time, those deposits grow, the discipline strengthens, and the results compound in ways that can surprise you. Discipline doesn't shout. It whispers. It whispers in your choices, in the quiet moments when no one is watching, when you decide to stick to the plan or wander off course. And if you let it guide you, discipline becomes the steady hand that walks you right into wealth. Debt can be one of life's sharpest tools, but like any sharp instrument, it can either help you carve out a future or cut you deeply if mishandled. Too many people treat debt like a toy, something to play with, something to indulge in whenever the mood strikes: a new car, a vacation, a gadget they don't need but feel compelled to have. And what happens? The toy becomes a trap, and the trap becomes a prison. Payments pile up. Interest compounds against you instead of for you, and suddenly freedom feels further away, not closer. The philosophy here is simple. Debt can enslave or empower. Used wrongly, it chains you. Used wisely, it lifts you. The difference lies not in the debt itself, but in the purpose behind it. I once knew a man who borrowed heavily to impress people with his lifestyle cars, clothes, and dinners he couldn't afford. 10 years later, all he had to show for it were memories and mountains of bills. But another man I knew borrowed to purchase a small apartment building. At first, it barely paid for itself, but he was patient, disciplined, and consistent. Over time, the tenants paid down his debt, the value of the property rose, and today he enjoys income that works whether he does or not. Same tool, different use. The strategy is clear. Only borrow for income-producing assets, never for consumption. If the debt creates cash flow, if it builds equity, if it expands your capacity to earn, then it can be an ally. But if the debt simply funds pleasure or appearances, then it robs you twice, once in interest and again in opportunity cost. The practical step is straightforward. Eliminate consumer debt and use leverage only for business or property. Pay down credit cards. Close the accounts that encourage impulse, and redirect that energy into building assets. When you do borrow, do it with eyes wide open, with a plan that spells out how the borrowed money will generate returns exceeding its cost. Debt doesn't care how you use it. It only multiplies the decision you've already made. Treat it as a tool, and it will build. Treat it as a toy, and it will break you. Money has a strange nature. If you don't give it direction, it tends to disappear. It slips through your fingers like sand, and at the end of the month, you're left wondering where it all went. That's because money doesn't grow in chaos, it grows in order. A disorganized financial life will always lead to missed opportunities, constant stress, and the illusion of progress without real growth. But the moment you begin to build a system for your money, you turn it from a restless wanderer into a disciplined worker. The philosophy is simple. Money grows under order, not chaos. Just as a farmer assigns every seed to its row, so must you assign every dollar to its purpose. Without structure, dollars become drifters, and drifters don't build wealth. The strategy then is to give every dollar a job, living, saving, investing, giving. Don't just spend what's in your account. Tell it where to go and make sure it obeys. I remember when I was first learning this principle, my mentor asked me, "Where's your money plan?" I said, "Well, I try to be careful." He said, "That's not a plan, that's a hope." That day I began setting up envelopes, one for expenses, one for savings, one for investing, and one for giving. Back then, it was simple, but that system changed everything. It wasn't about how much I had, but about how much discipline I applied. The practical step is to automate. Don't rely on willpower alone, it's too inconsistent. Set up transfers that move money into savings, investments, and giving accounts the moment you get paid. That way, your money goes to work before you even touch it. When you automate, you build wealth by habit, not by chance. And over time, those habits compound into freedom. It's not how much you make that determines your future, it's how well you manage what you already have. Build a system for your money, and soon your money will start building a future for you. The marketplace is a mirror. It reflects not your intentions, not your effort alone, but the size of the problems you're willing and able to solve. Income isn't a mystery, it's a measurement. And the measurement is simple. The bigger the problems you solve, the bigger the rewards you earn. If you spend your life fixing small problems, you'll receive small compensation. But if you dedicate yourself to tackling bigger challenges, ones that affect many people, the marketplace will respond in kind. Think of it this way. A person who flips burgers solves the problem of hunger for a few people at a time, and they're paid accordingly. But the person who designs a system to serve millions of meals a day, now that's a larger problem, and the income reflects it. It's not about working harder in the same lane. It's about stepping into lanes where the problems are greater, the stakes are higher, and the value is multiplied. I learned this truth when I started journaling problems I noticed around me. At first they were simple. The store doesn't open on time, or people don't know how to budget their money. But soon, the exercise stretched my mind. I started seeing bigger inefficiencies, larger gaps, deeper needs. And once you train your mind to spot problems, solutions start showing up too. That's when opportunity knocks. The practical step is to keep a daily journal. Write down the problems you see in your field, your community, or even in your own life. Some of those problems will be too small to pursue. Others may be too big for where you are right now. But one day, one of those problems will match your skills, your courage, and your season of life. That's when you lean in. The marketplace doesn't reward effort alone. It rewards solutions. If you want to increase your income, don't just demand a raise. Raise the level of problems you're willing to solve. Because when you solve bigger problems, you don't have to chase money. Money comes looking for you. Working for money will keep the lights on, but it won't set you free. Wages are a fine beginning. They pay the bills. They put food on the table. They keep life moving. But wages alone will never buy you freedom. Freedom is built on ownership. Ownership of equity. Ownership of ideas. Ownership of assets that keep producing long after your day's labor is done. If all you ever do is trade your time for a paycheck, you'll always be tied to the clock. The moment you stop working, the money stops coming. That's a dangerous way to build a life. When I first started out, I worked for a wage like everybody else. But then a mentor challenged me with a simple question. Do you want to make a living, or do you want to make a fortune? That question stayed with me. A living is tied to wages, a fortune is tied to ownership. From that point forward, I began to shift my thinking. Instead of only asking, how much will they pay me for my time? I started asking, what piece of this can I own? How can I build something that pays me even when I sleep? It doesn't have to be a grand empire at the beginning. You could start with something small, a piece of equity in a business, a rental property, a digital product, or even royalties from a book or a course. The size doesn't matter at first. What matters is the shift in thinking, the transition from working only for today to building ownership that keeps rewarding you tomorrow. The practical step is simple. Start a side business or acquire a small piece of equity. Don't wait until everything is perfect. Ownership doesn't come from waiting, it comes from beginning. Even if it's just a small percentage, even if it's a modest venture, that ownership plant will grow if you water it with time and consistency. Remember this, employment will give you a living, but ownership will give you a life. Choose not just to work for money, choose to work for ownership. That's where freedom is found. Wealth without purpose is fragile, but wealth tied to legacy becomes eternal. The true measure of success is not just what you build for yourself while you're alive, but what you leave behind when you're gone. Legacy isn't simply money, it's direction, it's principles. It's the structures you put in place so that your wealth continues to work long after you've stopped. Think of it this way. Income sustains you, assets sustain generations. If you can build something that outlives you, then you've transformed your work into a gift that multiplies across time. I remember early in my career, I was focused only on what I could earn for myself. My mentor stopped me and said, don't just think about what this money can do for you, think about what it can do for others when you're gone. That perspective changed everything. Suddenly, wealth wasn't about bigger houses or finer clothes. It became about planting trees under whose shade I might never sit. The question became, how can I build structures, businesses, investments, systems that will provide value for my family, my community, and even people I may never meet? The strategy is to think beyond consumption and even beyond immediate growth. Ownership of real estate, businesses, royalties, or trusts can continue to produce long after your work is done. But equally important, you must pass on the wisdom to steward those assets. Money without principles is quickly lost. Principles without money leave potential unrealized. The two together form the foundation of legacy. So here's the practical step. Draft a plan for passing on your assets and your values. That means putting it in writing through wills, trusts, or business succession plans. But it also means teaching your children, your protégés, and those around you the mindset that created the wealth in the first place. A legacy plan is both legal and personal, both financial and philosophical. Because at the end of the day, wealth is not just about what you accumulate, it's about what you preserve, protect, and pass forward. Build assets that not only sustain your life, but extend beyond it, carrying your influence and your vision into the future. That's when wealth truly becomes meaningful. It may seem paradoxical, but the act of giving is often the very thing that ensures receiving. Contribution multiplies wealth because it shifts the focus from scarcity to abundance. When you give, whether it's knowledge, time, or financial resources, you send out a signal that says, I have more than enough. And life has a way of answering that confidence by sending even more back your way. Wealth that stays locked in your hands grows stale. Wealth that flows outward gathers momentum and expands. I remember when I was struggling early in life, holding tightly to every dollar, as if letting go of it meant I'd never see it again. Then I was challenged to contribute a small portion of what little I had. At first, it didn't make sense why give away what I barely had enough of. But soon I realized that contribution sharpened my awareness. It forced me to manage the rest of my money more carefully, and at the same time, it expanded my influence. People trust and are drawn to those who give, and opportunities began to come my way in unexpected forms. Contribution wasn't just a noble idea, it became a strategy for growth. Now, the beauty of contribution is that it isn't limited to money. Sharing your knowledge with a younger person who's eager to learn, mentoring someone in your field, or volunteering your time can produce ripple effects far beyond anything you could predict. A kind word, a bit of wisdom, or a helping hand often plants seeds that grow into partnerships, businesses, and communities that ultimately generate more wealth than you could have created alone. The practical step is simple. Set aside 5-10% of your income specifically for contribution. Make it a line item, just as important as your savings or investments. But don't stop there. Commit to contributing your time and your wisdom. Teach what you've learned. Share what has worked. Offer a hand to someone still climbing the ladder. Contribution is not about what leaves your hands. It's about what enters your heart and what grows from it. Because in the end, money can build a fortune, but contribution builds a life. And it is that life, rich in impact and meaning, that multiplies wealth beyond measure.